Barbara, welcome to the Skiing is Believing podcast. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm good. I'm really good. Excited for the season to start. But I guess
Yes.
it's already started in some
Mm,
places.
yeah. How is it looking at home where you are at the moment?
Well, I did, like I saw on, um, like, I think it was Instagram maybe, that Killington is making snow because I was a little worried because it's actually been beautiful this fall and it's only starting to get cold now. So for us at Cochran's ski area where we are, we won't start making snow yet, but, and so none of the ski areas are open around here yet. It's like, it's still lawn and leaves and stuff. So it'll be a while, I think. I don't know how quickly the season will be starting around here, but Killington is really trying to get ready for the World Cup. So
Mm,
Uh,
in a couple
yeah,
weeks.
yeah.
yeah, very good. Looking forward to that one, of course. Um, I'm going to start by taking you right back to the very beginning and ask how you first got into ski racing in this family that just seems to love the sport.
um, well, when we got into ski racing, actually, it was at a place called Mount Escutney, which is in southern Vermont, and my dad was a teacher at Windsor High School, and he was also the ski coach. So, and he loved skiing. So he loved all sports, but he loved skiing. And so we would that's where we learned to ski, was at Mount Escutney. And that was in the early 50s or mid 50s anyway. And what they would do is they would have these lollipop races that if you won your age group, then you won a lollipop. And I don't ever remember that I ever won a lollipop. But
Did
anyways, that's how we got started, was through that.
Yeah.
Obviously with your dad, as you say, loving the sports and ski racing, did it only feel natural for you and your siblings to do that and to to enjoy it?
Well, that was like my parents, especially my dad. The one thing he was hoping that skiing would give to us was just a love for the sport, and he loved sports, all sports. So it seemed like we were always active, whether it was, just going outside and throwing a football around, or kicking a soccer ball, or playing softball, and as we got a little bit older, we picked up tennis, and we hiked. We before we moved to Richmond, we actually would go camping, and so we definitely were a family that loved being outside, being in nature, and that was really important to us. But with Dad was like, even when we lived in New Hampshire, he always had a dream of putting a rope tow up in the backyard someplace. And so, but he was a school teacher, and he found that once all four of us were born, my siblings and I, and on a teacher's salary back in the 50s, he just felt like he couldn't really support the family. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and so he decided that he needed to get another job. So he started to interview for as a mechanical engineer, because that was part of his degree from the University of Vermont was in mechanical engineering. And so he ended up interviewing at in Burlington at General Electric, and got the job there. He was all set to go. We were set to go to take a trip across the country and go to Boeing in Seattle. He had an interview set up there, so we thought we were going. But my uncle worked at GE, and he told Dad, he said, I think there's an opening here at GE. You should just come up and see if you can get an interview. So he did. And so he got that job, and we moved to South Burlington, lived there for 2 years. But during that time, Dad always wanted a place in the country with a hill in the backyard, so he could put up a rope tow. So so they did start looking at places, and found this house in Richmond that was an old farmhouse. The barn, there had been a beautiful barn, but that was long gone. I don't know if it burned to the ground or what happened, but it wasn't there when we moved there. But the important thing was that there was a hill in the backyard that had the right exposure. It faced northwest, I think. So that was a good exposure for holding the snow, because this was during a time we moved there in 1960, and Dad started working on cutting down trees and putting his rope tow up. So we moved there in mid-September, and he'd come home from work, and then we'd all go out and help with whatever needed to be done. Usually it was clearing brush, and and by February of 1961, he had the rope tow in and could turn it on, and so we could start skiing there. We still were part of the Smuggler's Notch Ski Club, so but dad knew that as an athlete, that only to be able to ski on the weekends wasn't enough training, that you really needed to get more training than that. So he felt like that was part of the reason he wanted a rope tow in the backyard, was so that we could train during the week as well as just on weekends. So once we had the rope tow in, and then I don't know if it was like the next year that he actually put lights on the back of the house and one or two poles on the hill so that we could ski at night. And then it became like on Tuesday and Thursday, after dinner, we would go out and we'd train from like maybe 6 to 9 or something like that. But the thing that was so much fun was that all our friends in ski racing, it didn't matter what club they were in, but they would come and train with us. And it was like this little party every Tuesday and Thursday nights with us going out and training. It was awesome.
Do you think your dad had it in his mind that you were going to turn out to be a champion skier?
No, not at all. He had no
No?
idea. Nope, he was a really good athlete himself. Like at one point, he grew up around the Boston area, and and like he played a lot of sports, but baseball and football were two of his sports that he really kind of excelled in. And um and I don't know, but the family story goes, so I don't know if this is true or not, but that at one point, um, when it must have been like after World War II, I think. Um, and I think that he was married, and we had started to come along. So, but the story goes that he was asked by the Boston Red Sox to try out for the team. So he was good. He played in the Northern League here in Vermont, and played against other players that went on to the majors in baseball.
Ah,
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
good.
Touching
yeah,
touching on your career now, you made your World Cup debut at just 17. Went to the World Championships in 1970 and picked up a medal, and then 2 years later became the Olympic champion at age 21. This
right.
very early success, did you feel any pressure, or did you think that that was maybe one of the reasons you were so successful because you were young and there was no expectations?
Well, I think, like the thing, like my dad was a phenomenal coach, and one of the things that I believed was that I was capable, that I could do it. And for 19 in 1972 at the Olympics, there was a lot of attention on our family and on the US, for, like reporters and friends and relatives. They were all asking, from the spring, summer, fall, and going into that winter, well, how do you think the U.S. ski team's going to do at the Olympics? And my response was always, we have a good team. We could do very well at the Olympics. But like, especially the reporters would say to me, well, let's just be realistic. How do you think you're going to do at the Olympics? And so what I told them over and over again was that, you know, I don't know if I'll win at the Olympics, but what I do know is that I'm capable of winning. And by telling them over and over that, it's like it was like an affirmation that I said over and over again, and I knew nothing about affirmations. It wasn't until I had stopped racing and but was interested in sports psychology, and started to find out more about that mental piece of competition. And I just think, like, my dad was, he was a natural sports psychologist. He wasn't trained in it or anything, but just the way he would think, he'd think outside the box. And so we grew up, and I think I was very receptive to his the things that he told me. Um, so when I went to the Olympics, I had no question in my mind that um, like, I saw myself as one of the best, that I was very capable of winning, and I think that was one of the reasons that I was successful there. I do remember, like, the first run, I ran first, which was my favorite number to go. I always love going first, and it didn't happen very often in World Cup. Um, but so that was like a good omen, good luck. And I had my, I was a little bit superstitious, so I had a special scarf that I'd wear around my neck, and made sure I had that on that day. But um, when I ran first, I won the first run by 300ths of a second. And then it's like, and the first run, I was just there to, telling myself, just do your best, put your best effort into it. So all you can ask for is just to try and do your best. And so that was my goal for the first run, was just to do my best. Between runs, when I was studying the course for the second run, I started to change my thoughts. And my thoughts were, oh my God, I'm winning after the first run. It's like, I could actually win an Olympic gold medal. How cool would that be? Oh my gosh, what do I have to do to beat the French? What do I have to do to make sure I don't make any mistakes? I hope I don't make any mistakes. And so my mind just started to go like crazy and go in all the wrong direction. And I remember being about halfway up the course, because we used to hike the course and memorize it. And I was about halfway up the course, and I just could feel my body changing. And I said to myself, this was all in my head. I said, come on, VA, you got to change how you're thinking, because right now this is not working. I knew if I kept going that direction, I was going to choke. And so I did. I changed it. Like, I just reminded myself, um, you just do the best you can. Put your best effort into it. That's all you can ask of yourself. I reminded myself, I said, you know what? If the French girls can win, because that was the strongest team at the time, even though at those Olympics they had done not very well up to that point. But I said, if the French girls can win, I can too. And then the third thing was something that my dad had said to me at the World Championships 2 years before, when I was getting really nervous again for the second run of the slalom. And I was telling him that, and he said, I always thought you were the cool cucumber in the family. So I thought of that, and I went, oh yeah, I'm the cool cucumber. So I thought of that. And then the last thought I had, it kind of released that tension, that anxiousness, the panicky feeling. And what I thought was, you know what? You've won the first run of an Olympic slalom race. Not very many people have done that. So no matter what happens, you can always be proud of yourself. And once I thought that, then it's like, okay, I don't know how this is going to end up. I don't know if I'm going to win. I don't know if I'm going to, go out fall, catch a tip, miss a gate. I have no idea what's going to happen this second run, but it'll be okay. I'll be okay. Whatever the results are, I'll be okay. And with that, then I could just go and do what I needed to do. So I lost the second run by 100, but overall I won by 200s. So I was very close.
Yeah, I believe it was one of the closest wins in Olympic alpine skiing history. If not the closest.
It was the closest at that point. I think since then it's either been tied or somebody it might have been surpassed. It might be somebody won by 100th. I don't remember now, but I know at that point it was the closest in history.
We've not had too many Olympic champions on the podcast. So what is it like to cross the line? You might look over and you see your friends, your family maybe, and you're the Olympic champion. Is that like, did it have to sink in, or was it just like a bit of relief? How did you feel?
Well, when I crossed the finish line and I knew I had made it, I hadn't fallen or, made any major mistakes or anything. It was like I didn't even think about looking at the scoreboard, the clock that they had up there. And at first it just seemed like it was silence, and so I thought, oh no, I didn't do it. And then I saw my boyfriend and my brother kind of tumbling over the fence, and they hoisted me to their shoulders, and then I was going, okay, I won. But what Bob said is that he told me this like long after, like years after the Olympics, but he said, when we put you up on our shoulders, we were just really happy that you finished. That's why we put you up on our shoulders. We didn't even know that you had won. So, but I had won. So, yeah.
You then took the decision to retire just 2 years later. And looking back now, do you have any regrets from your career and the fact that you ended it prematurely?
At the time that I ended it, I really, I do feel like I had more ski racing left in me, but not at that time. I felt like I really felt like the U.S. ski team administration was tired of the Cochrans, that they were ready for us to retire. So, um, and honestly, the last 2 years of my racing, so the 2 years after the Olympics, I felt like, I wanted to get hurt so that I could take a break. I didn't want to have to make that decision, but I really felt like I just wish I, could get hurt a little bit so that I could take a little break from ski racing. Um, and then it was, my mom had a nervous breakdown that year. My dad was kind of ousted from being the coach of the ski team. I felt that there was division on the team itself, that there were some people that really embraced dad as coach, and there were others that really felt like that was a problem. There, I didn't realize when he was hired that there would be teammates that would feel threatened because they felt like he would be partial to his own kids, because all four of us were on the U.S. ski team, and I had no idea that that was going to be a problem, and it did become a problem. Um, not it was more because I feel like they didn't understand my dad. My dad was like, he would go out of his way to make sure that he was not partial to his kids. Like even the first junior nationals I ever went to, he was the coach for the Eastern team. And he pulled me aside for the giant slalom. He said, I understand that I really could put you in a higher place for the start, but I don't want people to feel like I'm playing favorites with you. So I'm gonna put you in that third starting position rather than the second starting position for the Eastern team. And I was fine with it. It's like it didn't bother me. I ended up winning anyway, even though I was running back a little bit further. So that's the way Dad was. Like he was very conscious of that. He didn't he was there for every athlete, and some of the athletes I think didn't recognize that, especially um, they 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 weren't getting great results, and so I think that kind of exasperated things a little bit. So it really, for our family, my 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 sister, my older sister, and I, and my brother, um, we were Marilyn was 24, I was 23, Bobby was 22, and we all retired at the same year.
Ah.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like if I could have had like a break, and if I felt the culture for the US ski team had been a little bit differently, I think I really wasn't ready to retire completely, you know. I mean,
Hmm.
it's awesome that like somebody like Marcel Hirscher after 5 years is coming back. It's like it's crazy to me that somebody would stop racing for 5 years and then try and come back.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I really appreciate your honesty there, Alan.
Yeah, I was just going to say, do you feel the pressure, what you felt from because you care about your father and how he was trying to manage what he was doing? Do you think that was one of the main reasons perhaps why you retired? Because you felt for him to protect him a bit?
I hadn't really thought of it that way. Um, but that could have been part of it. That definitely
Yeah,
could be part of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
Hmm.
yeah. Because you said pressure is really because you care about something, and
Yeah.
if you were building up pressure because of what the decisions you had to make, and like you said, you were tired anyway, and that builds up pressure. So maybe that was why you decided this is the time.
Yeah.
Who knows? Who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah.
Do you feel that if you had an opportunity like Hersher has had, that you might have given it another shot?
Not after 5 years. If it had been like if I had had 1, maybe 2 years off, and then decided that I really wanted to come back, maybe at that point it would have been okay. But not after 5 years. 5 years is definitely had, I was trying to finish up college, and yeah, so definitely not. But
Maybe it helped because of the fact that you had some success. So it wasn't as painful giving up as it would have been if you had not reached the goals you wanted.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I got into, like, I was coaching at Steve Lathrop, who had been on the US ski team, like was a teammate, started these Lathrop adult racing camps. And so he asked me if I would coach. So I'd go down and coach with that. And that was fun. So I got into coaching, um, which but and then I became a school teacher. And when I was a school teacher, the thing I loved about being a school teacher was the coaching part, because then I was like, the first year I taught, I was asked if I could coach field hockey. I didn't know anything about field hockey, but I thought, oh, it's a lot like soccer. I can coach field hockey. So I was the JV coach for and but I knew nothing. I didn't know what the ball looked like. I didn't know what the stick looked like. I didn't know what the rules were. And then, so I took out a book to learn more about field hockey so I could, and I was a JV coach. It would have been really hard if I'd been a varsity coach, but I worked with a varsity coach. And I brought that, the mental side of competition. I was really helpful that way. And the varsity coach really taught me a lot about the game of field hockey. Because when I got out the book and started reading about field hockey, I thought, they've got some really weird rules with field
Yeah,
hockey.
yeah, they have.
Yeah. You know, and I was and looking at the stick, I'm going, they make a stick that you can only hit the ball on one side? What's that about? You know?
Yeah,
So,
we would.
but anyway, yeah,
Yeah,
so I enjoyed that.
it seems that like Alan yourself, you've enjoyed a different, like lots of different positions over your life and exploring new things. Like you say, taking up something you hardly knew anything about. Do you see that
Yeah.
that is something good, that after you retired you found something completely new and something that you turned out to enjoy?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with when I was coaching, like I thought a lot about like sometimes I'd be asked to do a presentation, whether it was to like a specific team or if it was, you know, just to talk to athletes. So I started to put together kind of my thoughts on that sports psychology piece of competition. And then that, even though I was teaching all along, like I taught for, I think it was about maybe 20 years or so, um, that that the I started to work with individual athletes on, you know, just like if it was on the hill and I could see somebody was disappointed, I'd try and see what I could tell them that would help them out, like I was kind of doing for myself at the Olympics when I had to do a little pep talk to me.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to do for them. And so from there, um, then I started to develop a program, and I call it how to gain the competitive edge. So I do work with athletes now, and try and teach them about, you know, being mentally tough, and the way their thinking does affect how they're going to perform, and try and get those thoughts that are like growth mindset or pressure reducing thoughts rather than the fixed mindset or pressure producing thoughts. And what your belief, you, like everybody has limitations with beliefs that they have. Some they might know about and some they might not know about. I know when I was racing that one of the things I never knew until after I stopped racing was that I didn't like the attention. I loved being on the course. I loved being in the start and challenging myself, especially in slalom. Um, and giant slalom a little bit, not downhill. I was afraid of downhill, but but just that idea that you know, like where you're at, um, those beliefs that you might not know about can really affect your
Yeah.
results. And so, like I wish I had known that like it was that getting up on the podium, especially if I was in first, that if I had won, that was the hardest thing for me to do, was to walk up and get up on the podium and accept my award. I wanted the award. I wanted to get it, but I didn't want the attention that went along with it.
Mm.
And I wish I had known that when I was racing, because then I could have made a decision. You know, I could have said, okay, am I happy, you know, when I come in top 10, when I come in second, third, but not winning, is that okay with me? Or do I want to do better with winning? And I think I would have chosen to get more comfortable with the attention so that I could have won more. Cause I went back and I looked to see how many times I'd come in the top 10, and because my belief is that if you have the skills to come in the top 10, you have the skills to win. And
Yeah.
so I went back and counted how many times I came in the top 10, and it was like 40. But I only won three World Cup races, you know. So I think that was, you know, like I wish I had known that. The other thing that I just found out this year, when I was doing a workshop called Psych K, and that's where you're finding out what your limiting beliefs are, and then trying to it's like balancing. There's a process that you use to balance those messages in your brain, and so that you can get rid of that. But what I learned was that I had a belief, a limiting belief, that I'm I wasn't a winner. And I went, that made so much sense to me, because I felt like growing up in my family that I feel like I'm an Irish triplet, because I'm 11 months younger than my older sister and 11 months older than my brother. So 22 months, there were three of us, and I was in the middle. And so growing up with in that family, and then my younger sister was born like a year and a half after my brother. So in 3.5 years, there were four of us. And but it's like my older sister, like she was better all the time. I didn't see myself as being a winner, so that was another limiting belief that I didn't even discover until, you know, over 50 years later, after I'd stopped racing.
Mm.
And I wish I had known that when I was racing. So that's part of what I try and do, is help people understand what their limiting beliefs are, so that they can make a decision about them, whether or not they want to overcome those limiting beliefs. Or because I had to work pretty hard to win those races that I won, believing that I really wasn't a winner, you know? So
I feel like you want to say something on that.
No, yeah,
The
but
whole
yeah, I would.
mindset. That's your.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is. It's. Do you think that is why athletes can now ski into the 30s, because of the modern science and the way that people are more aware of things? Yeah.
absolutely. I do think, like there's so much more science now about just what they do and taking care of their bodies, the nutritional aspect of it. Ryan, my son was telling me about, like I was trying to talk to him, and he was in Europe. He had a race the next day or something, and I was, FaceTiming or something, and he said, "Well, I have to go now, Mom, because they have to do my pre-race training." And I was going, "What's that? What do you have to, what do you mean? What do you have to do for pre-race training?" I had no idea, and it's like, but it's getting their muscles ready for competing the next day. So it's come such a long ways. And
Yeah.
and even the injuries, coming back from injury, it's like the way they can, like Ryan with his screws and plates, and just, because he destroyed his knee when he was around 20. He broke his hand. I don't know how old he was then, but so he has a plate in his hand, and then he broke his neck when he was 20, or in 2021, I think, was when he broke his neck. And he's come back from all of those. It's like incredible that he can continue to be at that high level and still compete. So, yeah. And last year, um, with the amount of injuries with those elite athletes, with Alexander Kilda, my heart goes out to him. That I hope that he's able to recover from the injury that he suffered last year, and all the others that got injured last year too.
Yeah, I mean, you've sort of led us to talk about it. I did want to touch on Ryan. Of course, you've grown up. You're his mum. Do you feel that you have played a very important role in the person he is, the racer he is?
not the racer that he is. I feel like I did, you know, I was always instructing. I was a school teacher, but then on the weekends I would help with instructing in the programs that we had at Cochran's, and so so when he was like 2, I brought the pack and play over to the ski area, and so I'd go out and he'd be in the pack and play, and then you know, and for taking his naps and stuff. But then I try and take him out to ski and give him that experience. He and his sister, both of them, Caitlin, Ryan, and and so when he was 2, you know, it was a lot of skiing with him between my legs. And I remember we had a start that had gotten built up, and it was pretty steep to go down from the start. And he wanted to go down it, but he was still skiing between my legs. And I was going, I was like, I was a little bit nervous about going down with him between my legs because it was pretty steep. But I did it, and you know. But then by the end of that, like the end of February, during February vacation, he was a month. It was a month before he turned 3. He finally got it all by himself. It was like amazing that he could, you know, and he just took off from there. It was like there was when he was about 5. I was teaching on our little beginner hill, and he was off skiing on we call it the race trail, and the kids love to build these jumps and then go off. So he came over when I was teaching on the beginner hill, and he said, Mom, when you're done, come on over to the race trail. I want to show you something. So I said, okay, Ryan. So I went over, and what he showed me was like they had built a jump that went he flew off this jump so high right next to the woods, and then it was on a little bit of a pitch, and then but he got so much air. It's like my thought when I saw him doing that was, I am so glad I did not know this is what you were doing the whole time I was teaching. But I didn't tell him that. I didn't tell him that. But it's like, oh, you know, so and he was a natural. He just had such a touch on his skis, and and just, you know, he loved it. And plus, like, he was the youngest of all the cousins, so he loved going out and trying to keep up with, especially with his cousin Robbie Kelly, who is like about 2 years older than he is. That was like they're still best friends to this day. They love doing stuff together. So
Yeah, we had the pleasure of chatting with Ryan earlier in the year, probably some stage in the summer, and the 3 things that I actually remember from the conversation was that he just talks about how he was in love with skiing before ski racing, and that sort of, as you say, Barbara, came naturally to him.
mhm.
He told us how he used to just follow Robbie everywhere he went, and try and catch up with him all the time, and that he just always loved the jumps and the speed, and
Yeah.
that is still very clear when he flies down Kitzbühel these days.
Oh, that's a hard one for me to watch, but it's like I it's like I can't not watch it. I have to watch it when he's in on racing, because I want to know that once he gets out of the start that he makes it through the finish. So
And how was it for you? 50 years on from your Olympic gold, your son takes Olympic silver. You know, that, not the irony of it, but yours was in Japan, his was in China.
I
Obviously,
know.
you had
Yeah.
to watch it all from home, but surely
Yeah.
that was just, you must have been very, very proud of him in that moment to be an Olympic medalist just like you.
Oh my goodness, I was screaming when because I was watching on my laptop, you know, because it's China, and in Vermont it was I don't know, it was late at night, and so I was in bed. I was in my pajamas. I was watching, and I was screaming I saw he was going, and he was getting the green light coming down. It was like, I mean, just so proud, just unbelievably proud of what he accomplished. It was like, and also the person that he is too. When he went to the Olympics in 4 years before that in South Korea, one of the things I did was I wrote him a little letter, and I wanted him to just be proud of being on the Olympic team, because there's only, like, I don't remember how many men were chosen for the alpine team in China, but in South Korea it's limit like 7 or 8 are chosen out of the U.S.
Oh,
So
for each discipline, yeah.
yeah, and I told him, that be very, very proud of yourself for doing that. And the other thing I wanted to tell him was that I really felt like there are a lot of guys that were capable of getting on the podium or winning, including him. I felt like he was capable of that too. And but I also wanted him to know that at my Olympics, that I was just as proud of myself for coming in 11th in the giant slalom as I was coming in first in the slalom. And so, that it's like, just appreciate this moment that you're competing in this contest, this competition that's the best of the world. They're bringing everybody together to race, and so that in of itself is something to be extremely proud of.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like last season there was a few times where it was like, oh, he's fourth in Kitzbühel. A few other times where he was
Yeah,
like 2/10 off the podium, but maybe sixth or seventh. And
yeah.
do you feel like he could kick on again this year? I presume that he's been home over the summer, and with a world championship around the corner too.
Yeah, absolutely. I just I do feel that, I mean, I'll be cheering him on. I'll be watching all the time, and like I tease him. I say, I hope you can hear me when I'm yelling at you. Just go, 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 Ryan. um, but no, it's like, it's so close. And sometimes it's like, I mean, somebody like Marco Odermatt that has that consistency is unbelievable. But and you never know who's going to have that breakthrough, who's going to be the one that's going to be consistent. So like Cyprian Serzan last year,
Yeah,
had that was his year. That was, and we'll see what he does coming up this year and see. But there's a bunch of guys, Ryan included, that could be there. Could they
absolutely.
all, you
Yeah.
know?
And I
It's
think that throughout Ryan's time on the team, he's always had, really, really good guys around him, even to this day, people that are picking up podiums and even wins.
yeah, yeah,
Every season upon season, like the
yeah,
likes of Bryce Bennett, I think, and
yeah,
people before that as well, Steve Nyman and many others.
yeah.
I think we've sort of discussed that this seems like it could well be a very good year for America, with the World Cup finals being there, Beaver Creek starting the men and the women's speed seasons, and of course World Championships as well. I think there's always going to be a certain woman that's doing well, but
Yeah,
the men's side is looking pretty strong too, don't you think, Barbara?
I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, yeah, because like Jared Goldberg's has had good results too, and then there's the young ones that have had some really promising, like whether it's just in training runs or in races, but promising results. And and then injuries, so
Yeah.
there's some that are coming back from injuries, and you just, that's the thing that scares me, are the injuries that, I pray that all the racers can make it through a season without any injuries.
Yeah.
Yeah. True.
Have you got any more things
No,
to discuss? Okay, we'll move to the quick fire questions to finish off with, and I'll start with your favorite place to ski.
Well, I think my favorite place to ski right now is Cochran ski area.
Are you there at the moment? Yeah, just outside, is it maybe?
No, I'm at home. I live in Starksboro, so it takes about 25 minutes to get to the ski area.
Still very close though.
Yeah, very close.
Okay, the best moment in your career, in your opinion?
Best moment. um, well, I think I mean, obviously, I think it was pretty special to win the gold medal at the
Hmm.
Olympics. That
Yeah.
was like, yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Where did the home World Cup wins rank for you that came in California in '71? Are they pretty high on the list too?
Yeah, it's yeah, actually, the when I was 17 and I raced at Heavenly Valley, that is actually kind of a special one to me because I actually was in the third seed, and they did the seeds differently. They went by 15. So the first 15, the highest fist points, or I should say lowest fist points, were in the first seed. Then the 16 through 30 were in the second seed, and then 31st through 45th. And I actually was in the third seat in slalom, but my coach felt like I was skiing pretty well, so that he could take like a U.S. skier and that was in the second seat, and move him back to the third seat and switch places with me. So that's what happened at Heavenly. And it was Susie Chaffee that got moved back. It was like her last year racing. I don't think she was very happy with me, but I had no idea that the coaches were going to do that. So I was running 21st, and I was just, I didn't know what to expect or anything, but I won the first run by six tenths of a second, I think, which was pretty big margin back then. And then my second run, it was like I ended up catching my uphill edge, and it kind of pulled me off course, and I had to go around and do an open gate, which is, it was because we had two poles that made a gate, and so I skied it backwards. I had to go uphill and then back around, but I still came in sixth in that race. So I was pretty proud of that one too.
At 17.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next quick fire, and that is your best friend in the sport.
My best friend in the sport?
Hmm.
Oh, um, well, I think the friend that I've kind of maintained contact with is Rosie Fortna. She's a little bit older than I was, but she was from Waitsfield. And so when I was like 13, I remember looking up to Rosie and just thinking, how good she was. And um, so I think that's really fun. But the other thing is that, like, anytime I get back together with other members, whether it's like Karen Budge Eaton or CC Teague, or just anybody, it's like you always feel so close to them. I know when the World Championships were in Ari, Sweden, I went there and I saw Rosie Mittermeier and Christian Neurother, Felix Neurother's parents, and it was like, you just feel like the time hasn't, even though so much time has gone by, that you feel very, very close. And Rosie was like, she was a very special uh, person on that circuit. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that is all the questions. I just wanted to say thank you very much for your time. It's a great conversation, and all the very best for Cochrane ski area this winter.
Yeah,
Thank you
you
so
very much.
much.
Thank
Yeah,
you
thank
so much.
you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it was fun. This was fun.
Yeah.
All right.